Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of North Carolina, Texas, fermentation, divorce, and so much more. Today, we sit down with Katie Black, who has just, she's announced her new role with Proximo Spirits. She's moving to Houston, going to be representing some amazing spirits in her portfolio. But I found out about Katie some time ago. I think we had dinner with a group of people sometime last year, and I realized she was deep into fermentation. She was distilling. She was even on the Moonshiners show. And so I had to dig deeper and understand who she is, where she's come from, and where is she going. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this great conversation with Katie Black.
Fine here because we're in like a major area,
Yeah.
but in the mountains of North Carolina, I don't know where that deal is coming from.
Man, with the same attitude people have, I'm going to consume a thing. I want the thing that I want whenever I want it, which flies in the favor of France, which we'll talk about. Is dating like that too? That the same kind of way to like consume, it's like for me, it suits me or I don't want it. Is it the same?
1000%. And I don't really have much to stand on with the dating world because I've been single for almost 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
Like pretty hard single. Started dating a little bit here and there, but nothing ever really like stuck. I'm over it. Like I'm loyal to a T. What the youngins say, the golden retriever kind of commitment situation. I think there's a beauty and a curse to all things being so accessible, but dating is like everything else. You can find it on the internet. You can find it when you go out.
Right.
And you're being compared to a hyper-focused amount of people all at one time. And we didn't have that when I was in high school, I didn't go to like formal college either, so I didn't have that experience of meeting. I always joke that if I would have gone to college and actually stayed for 4 years, I would have had a more successful relationship, maybe, which is not true at all. It's just perspective, and maybe that's the Texan in me.
Sure.
But yeah, absolutely agree that flavors change continually. I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And the older I'm getting, and the more I'm meeting people that I wouldn't have crossed otherwise, or open my mind to the idea of what a partner looks like for me now in my life.
Yeah.
It's completely opposite of where I would have been a decade ago.
Right. And so, and then let's just put it this way. I've been married, you've been married, so we kind of know what going the distance, so to speak, is. But
yeah, I think a lot of people give me a little slack. They're like, what do you mean I'm about to be 32, but I lived a whole life in my 20s that most people would live their entire lives. And I was a military spouse. So if you put in a marriage, going through your 20s, and just what that lifestyle brings, you learn a lot more about yourself, even when you're not ready for it. Mm-hmm. And it rocked my world.
Since it was, at least over like 6-7 years ago, something like that, if not longer. How do you reflect back on those moments now? Because I'm sure at some point maybe it was kind of acrimonious or tense, but now how do you look at it?
I think I definitely still have my days. I'm human. Yeah. It affects a lot of my life now in certain ways, but I think for the better.
Good.
I think when I approach certain situations, it's in the forefront of my mind when it comes to my way of life or how I really truly perceive the quality of my life now. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
I have no regrets on making that choice. I think a lot of people probably wouldn't want me to because it didn't end in the way that I would have wanted.
Sure.
But I followed my heart, and I think that's something that I'm so grateful exists within me because that is the full reason why I make all choices I do in my life. If you really get to know the ins and outs of who I am especially what's happened in my 20s, but more so my entire life story,
Yeah.
you start to understand the motivations of the steps that get me to where I'm at now. And I know we'll talk more about it a little bit further.
But I love that because it sounds like, because you're September birthday?
Mm.
Yeah. I'm double Virgo too.
Yeah.
I'm Aquarius, so I'm
Okay.
loony bins, but then I have like some
I'm loony bins without the Aquarius. So.
It's so strange. People like, this is something I think about sometimes, and I don't really care what people think about me, but what do you want to be one characteristic about you that either close friends or people that just kind of come into your life? What's one characteristic you'd really be like, I hope they got that from me or that about me?
Intentional.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah,
you're not
that's a
fooling
good
around.
one. No, even when I make mistakes or I do something out of the norm for somebody, there's always intention behind it, even if my intention is different than how it's perceived.
Right.
I try to be as loyal to me first and acknowledge where I may fall, but also I've had to do a lot of inner work because of my divorce and my life within that time. And it's not been pretty. So intention is a huge part of my life now, whether that be within person-to-person relation or just how I wake up, how I challenge myself within the day, adversities I'm facing. So intention's a good one.
Yeah, I rally really hard against posers, which is the absence of intention. It is just doing something because you're trying to perform it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing, is intention is really important. I think a lot of people articulate in that way, right? That there is purpose, because without a purpose, you can't be intentional, So, but the thing that I learned before we started recording is you're a Texas girl.
Mm-hmm.
And oh shit, that makes sense, right? And so Wichita Falls, this is the small town you said you're going, which I've passed through Wichita Falls.
Did you see much?
I can't recall seeing much.
There's a water tower and a water park right next to each other.
It was not much. That's correct. Yeah, it was quite flat, if I recall.
Yep.
What is small town Texas, which I haven't experienced that because I've lived kind of in larger cities like Houston and stuff. What is life in small town Texas, even though I've been to those towns? What's it really like? Because you, to me, seem incredibly cultured and very worldly, right? And I don't want to undersell Wichita Falls, but is that a match for you? Like the kind of aspirations that you have?
No.
Okay.
I will say, you're meeting me well over a decade and a half since I've been in town. So I will speak on my experiences in Wichita as a mere child. It was a rough upbringing for me. I think being from Austin initially and kind of splitting time each year. I spent all my summers here in Austin still. My grandparents, right? Family's still down here. I had family in both sectors.
Got it.
So school was out. I came down here to hang out with my grandpa. And a lot of my positive influence in my life has been my grandparents, but also my family here in Austin. Being in Wichita, I struggled finding friends. I have a couple of lifelong friends that I met when I moved up there that I still talk to day in and day out, as much as we can. And it's very different. Anyone, including Megan, you've spoken with Megan recently, she's a good friend of mine. She's from the Fort Worth area, and we can relate a little bit more than I can with my cousins who grew up here, specifically because the cultural differences could not be more apart. Think very cookie cutter. When you think of the South and you think of culturally what we are to the rest of the world, right. Wichita Falls is going to hit that more than Austin will. You're getting your line dancing and your country bars.
Yeehawing.
Yeehaw, hee-haw. You're getting a lot of people who, myself included, were affiliated with the military. It's an Air Force town, so I joked that I would never date anybody in the military. I did it twice in a row.
Wait, folks in military?
Yep.
Which branches? Air Force?
Air Force and then Army.
No way, really?
Yeah. I learned I should just stop saying I'm never going to do something. And oil field driven. So there's only a couple of quote unquote aspirations that people view growing up to get you out of that, or you stay. And the town has grown significantly since I've left. A lot of my friends left, went to college, came back, had families, opened their own businesses. And I think that perspective of leaving town and coming back has been for the better of the town.
I love it. And, the thing is, too, beyond what I'm noticing in movies and TV shows as a fetishization of rural Texas, which I don't understand.
It's all over Netflix.
Have you seen it now? This fucking Taylor Sheridan just needs to go back and write another. Now bear in mind, I like the stories, too. They're good. But it's just narrowly painted female characters.
It's a little more closed-minded, and the females do hold a certain religious or cultural component that still I don't think is gone. It might be masked a little bit, but I was expected to do things in a certain way and talk a certain way, look a certain way.
It's interesting. So then I love that because I was thinking, because you're so into fermentation, which we'll talk about, and of course production. That's very science-based, although rooted in creativity and art to some extent. But the fact that you studied theater, though, to me is a really, really interesting point. So 2 points about that. One, who is someone that you really like to watch act today? Because it's something you're quite familiar with. And secondly, was that going to be the academic aspiration to kind of study it in college?
Yeah. Ooh, I haven't thought about this. I feel like this chapter in my life closed a little bit, so I don't think about it as often naturally. I'm going to simmer on the first question.
Yeah, please.
But to elaborate on the academic, absolutely. School was a safe haven for me. I didn't have the easiest time in school with my peers, but academically it fell a little bit easier in my lap. Growing up, I'm the oldest, so I felt like I had something to prove. And I really enjoyed learning, which, funny enough, has been an overarching theme in my career. And I was able to get a theater scholarship as well as an academic scholarship.
Oh, where
fully.
Where?
I went to Fairleigh Dickinson, a private school in New Jersey. I would have never been able to afford it, but I was a thespian. So every year I went to a summer convention conference situation in Nebraska. It's worldwide. Auditioned for hundreds of colleges all at once, and that was the offer that made the most sense at the time. But I had truly, I can look back and admit that I was really bitter about Wichita Falls, and now I'm so grateful for it. It's not my place.
Sure. But it's part of you, right?
But it's part of me, and there's so many people that I love and adore that for them, that was exactly what they needed.
Do you remember which piece you were using to audition?
I loved Spring Awakening. Leah Michelle, that was one of her huge Broadway debuts from Glee. That's probably where most people know her. That was not only a really striking conversation for the theatrical world at the time, but being from a religious area, growing up religious as well, not feeling like I fit into that mold or into my life, having a little bit of a harder upbringing within my family, that musical spoke to me a little bit more because it's really gritty and honest, and it talks about queerness and just a ton of different things. If you haven't heard about Spring Awakening, I just encourage you, I don't want to ruin it, encourage you to look it up. But Mama Who Bore Me was the song that I ended up auditioning with. And ironically enough, my freshman year of college, that was the musical they chose.
No way.
I didn't end up doing it by any means. I was a freshman and not prepared to do that theatrically. And if I'm being honest, my monologue that I chose, I want to say that for that one, I wrote it.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be honest in that audition, and as much as I love theater, I have a hard stop with being around a ton of musical theater people in theater. That sounds so mean. I don't know another way to say it, but there's things that you love, including what I do now, where sometimes I just don't talk about it. I'm like, can you imagine? There's more to me than this personality.
Exactly. Can you imagine, like, to that end, right? Because you're in Austin. Can you imagine 5 days a week for 8 hours a day talking to bourbon bros about like that one thing all the time that
right.
and I love that they're excited about it. But fuck, man, there's gotta be more
I've done
to
it, and I'm like, oh my
God, gotta be more to this than that. But sometimes that's what people are.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay.
It's totally okay. The skills, I think, about being able to do public speaking, to be able to be comfortable in front of crowds, these seem to be tenets and skills and things that you've honed that work their way into your job in hospitality. Like it is second nature for you to engage, probably, right, to engage with people. And so sometimes I'm trying to bridge that gap in my head in someone's journey. It's like, well, why are they good with people though, right? Because it's some people are talented just purely, but other of us come from other places, which makes sense, you know. So this kind of is perfect throughput, if you will, from that. So I think maybe the trajectory in your interest in fermentation and production and distillation might be different had you not taken 3 years to go to Europe.
Absolutely. I still was doing theater actually in Europe, community theater. So this was something that even though I left college in the time, it just made more sense for my lifestyle. And I think where I was at, being in college and that being the only thing that I'd worked towards for, honestly, almost 2 decades, my entire life.
Yeah.
If you asked anyone in my family what I was going to do, they would have absolutely said, she's doing theater. Tell her she's doing something else, she's going to bash her head into a wall. Yeah, I was really, I'm still stubborn, but I was extremely stubborn back then, and I never thought of another plan.
Yeah.
My ex was military, and within that lifestyle, unfortunately, you do take a back seat, and I have no regrets in that regard, and I would change nothing of my choices, but because of that choice, my career was secondary at all times. I didn't know who I was after I left college and stopped doing theater. I didn't know what I want to do. I didn't know what was going to work with his career. We were both really young, and I met him at the beginning of his career, so we had no money. We were just in love and happy, and I did a ton of hospitality jobs. Throughout all of these transitions in my life, the one thing that was consistent, and I've said it time and time again, is hospitality in some form.
Yeah.
Worked in hotels, went back to school, and ended up getting into the dental field.
That one I wouldn't have picked.
I wouldn't have either, but once it kind of clicked in my head, I was like,
meant, not that it's not
sense.
a good job, but I just
for
would
me,
have seen it like, that one, all right.
There's no talking. Yes. I can't yap with anybody. No one can talk back to me. I loved it as much as I hated it in the long term. I look back and I think I settled a little bit for what made sense for my life, but I equally loved it just as much. I wanted it so bad, but it didn't make sense for me. Did that make sense?
Why did you want it so bad?
Because it was intriguing.
Oh.
I actually did love being a dental assistant, but physically, mentally, none of that added up.
I see.
So the thought of it, it's kind of like when you put everything down on paper and you're like, bam,
right.
Love that. I love that for me. And that's execution, you start looking at it, this is miserable. Like, I love working on teeth, but everything that revolves around that, sitting in a chair, my back, my neck, my coworkers, miserable.
It's the rapport part. That's why, like, I asked about dating, right? Because people are just trying to find someone that's good on paper.
Yep.
And then you go and you're like, yeah, they checked all the boxes, but this isn't good in practice. This conversation is whole. You know
I wanted to be a dentist. I really think I could have been successful, but my life took a 180 right when that transition was happening, and I got to live in Europe for a couple of years and try again.
Yeah.
You know, I sit in the uncomfort where a lot of people sit in comfort.
Yeah.
In what they know.
How do you feel about to that extent? I've had people tell me over the years, and some friends of mine as well, that they really don't like traveling alone. And I'm like, oh, I love traveling alone. I love traveling with Kay too, but I love traveling alone. Like, let's make no mistake about it.
Two truths.
Same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. They have their own pros and cons.
Yes, right.
I'm really particular about who I travel with now because I've traveled a lot, and I've traveled internationally a lot.
Yep, of course.
Okay.
What's the main trait of someone that's really going to be bad travel partner for you? What is one of the traits that bothers you?
Expectations. we're adults here. We're paying for this trip equally. We don't need to be attached at the hip. I will support you. Let's talk about what you want to do. Let's talk about what I want to do. But if you don't get out of bed until 1 p.m., sorry about you. Like, I didn't come here to sit down. I think too, as I've gotten older, a lot of these have changed, right? It depends on the destination. I eat. That's my traveling. I travel through food and beverage, travel through art and museums.
Same.
So
food and art for me.
You gotta do it during the daytime. Therefore, maybe let's say we're going on a week trip, right? Yeah. Maybe 2 out of 3 of those nights, I'm going to go wild. We're going to get out on the town. I hate being hungover, ironically.
That's not ironic.
I guess a lot of people, but I really hate it. I'm not a huge imbiber anymore. Sure. I really don't like it on trips. That sounds redundant because no one likes being hungover on a trip, but people do it all the time. I like a good balance. So finding somebody who's either okay to not go out every night or not go out with me. I'm fine staying in is a huge part for me because I've not had that expectation set and a lot of disappointment on each side being like, we came here to party, we're in Tulum. I'm like, I grew up here. I don't want to go out every night. Also, I guess that's one example, but truly it comes down to just being able to be self-sufficient.
I see.
My whole life I've been on my own for the most part. Even when I was married. So it's hard. It's hard for me to, I used to be more passive and put their needs before mine when I'm traveling with somebody and say, it's fine. Like, I'll get over it. Let's go do what you want to do. Now, not so much.
So, okay. We have to
I'm
go
probably
deep
rambling. So I guess, that's like a thing.
Very, 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 very good. And I just was moving some stuff from one place to the other this morning. And of course, this conversation as well. And I was talking to my friend Charles, who was driving the van, known him a long time. And I said, I had a moment here recently where I realized that I am as vulnerable as I've ever been with a partner, right? And because I'm willing to now. Some time ago with certain people, is it really worth all that it can be, with people, especially if they're not going to be vulnerable back, because it's a reciprocal kind of thing, as you know. And so this piece about self-reliance, does that sometimes push people out of your life or push them to a little further, I guess you could say arm's length, in terms of how close you'll get with them?
I would say, I'm sure it has. I think without me being fully aware at times, I've probably done it. I definitely have done it in the past. And intention, I think, helps with that self-awareness as I've gotten older and just had more life experience. But I would like to think that I've always been a pretty open book and give a little, take a little. I'm usually willing to give a little bit more than I get.
Yeah.
We're learning on that.
It's self-reliance is, I think, a great thing.
Right.
And at least for me, it comes from moving every 4 years and having no collection of, I've got a lovely collection of friends and a group of friends, if it was a better word for it. But growing up, I had shit. We weren't very rich. I love my family, so we're great. But it's just, you start to build your foundation by yourself.
Well, I think more so, I have amazing communities all around the world. And I think that speaks to not only who I've become, but also who they are, because it takes two sides. It's not just me putting in the work. With that being said, when it comes to me having people at arm's length, I have a hard time asking for help, and I know that.
Oh.
That's a huge part. So I don't have a hard time being vulnerable and being honest and speaking my truths, because the more time has gone on, like I said, expectations with traveling, I'm willing to put out on the table where I'm at, what I'm asking for. I'm a very bold and upfront person with that. Yeah. But I have a hard time relying on people or trusting that they're going to hold their word. Ooh. So that's weird.
That's the good one.
A weird balance.
That makes sense to me, because it's like, if you don't, it's hard. It's so hard to ask for help, And there's a whole other podcast chat, especially in times when we're feeling alone, and even if we're really smart too, because you're very intelligent, right? So we can probably convince ourselves we don't need help also. And we can I'll just get through it. I'll just get through the sadness.
Because I have no problem asking for help when it comes to my career or work.
Oh, really?
But when it's personal,
there's a big line there?
There's a vulnerability for me there. You know, I have my own, I don't want to say demons, but I have my own baggage for sure that I'm still working through. And the moment I ask for help or I let somebody into that, it doesn't go away. Now you're part of this story that I really would just rather walk through alone. Wow. But I have no problem saying, like, I have no idea what the hell I need to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do this expense. I've never done that before. Can you tell me more about it? That's fine. Because it's a different layer of who I am.
That's right. It's a different, I call them silos because that tells you how my brain works. But career silos over here.
Yep.
The love silo and relationships here. The social out-facing mic is here, and then everything, you know. So, but I think that's really profound. Those kinds of, because they're boundaries you're setting for yourself, you know, which is, again, very, very healthy. And so, you know, coming back from Europe, did you move to Massachusetts first? Is that, what was the first U.S. city that you're inbound when you got back from Europe?
So I had like a little bit of a pit stop. The plan was Washington State.
Oh.
Not to dive too far into it. When I came back from Europe, within a week of my flight, my dad ended up in the hospital.
Oh, no.
So I ended up back in Texas in Wichita Falls for what I thought would be a couple weeks, ended up being about 2 months.
Wow. What was the ailment?
My dad ended up having a stroke.
Okay.
He was 49.
Oh, wow.
And we found out through that stroke within not even 2 months that my dad had stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And lost him very shortly after. So
impossible to beat, ultimately.
Gosh, there's a lot of things I've seen in my family with illness, cancer, all of that. Yeah. That's one of the roughest. I've met people who also have had family members with pancreatic cancer, and they talk about how gnarly it is. Mm-hmm. There's no way to detect it. So that definitely, it's changed a lot for me, but also it put a pit stop. So ended up in Washington State after, and spent a year deciding if I wanted to go to viticulture school out there, fermentation, and lived with a good friend of mine I met in Germany, actually.
Oh, good.
We were both in same boat at the time.
Situations.
Same boat. We found our way to drift off into our own later, but we were like, let's do this together. And we, after a little less than a year, I ended up deciding to follow through and move to North Carolina. So went back to North Carolina and dove into my life of almost the last 7-8 years there, but had a pit stop in Massachusetts because I took a consulting gig for, it was initially 2 years, but I was there for a little under a year as well.
Is it brewery or cidery?
Cidery.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I've bopped around. People joke still to this day, like, where are you at? Because I'm traveling.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing life, and unless you have my location, I don't know if you know where I'm at,
right.
You know? So it's a different chapter now here where I'm going to settle for a bit, but yeah.
Well, what's really interesting, so I had the same kind of questions about your whereabouts, if you will. And
nothing new here.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm trying to piece it all together. I feel like I'm one of those detectives in Seven with the thumbtacks and like the yarn.
Oh, I'm
like,
all over.
He was over here.
Don't even add my traveling into it.
Washington came into the mix. That wasn't even anything I could find, even with what I could find.
Most of it, I've reduced my amount of sharing with the world. I'm trying to.
Is that intentional?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Of course it's intentional.
Very.
Yeah, sorry.
Word of the day.
That's right.
Yes, it's more of just me wanting to let people learn where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. And if time allots, we'll talk more about what those chapters looked like. Not that I have anything to hide, but my life is very complex and confusing. Mm-hmm. It still is. So yeah, I want you to learn where I'm at now first and then dive into the past later.
Is that something that's pretty conscious, again, intentional? Because I don't want to assume, but I might assume that all your decisions are intentional. Mm-hmm. It feels like you share just enough on social media to get the happy-go-lucky, relatively successful, moving around with new projects. Katie?
If you ask anybody a couple of years ago, different story. Really? It's just gone. A lot of stuff's gone.
Did you purge it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially with my mental health and where I'm at. I probably overshared a little bit too much in the past, but it's because I wanted to. I wanted to be vulnerable, and my upbringing and who I am internally and the stories in which I've had and still writing have been pretty dark. So I always say, and you hear it all the time, social media is one perception of what you see and what people want to share.
Yeah.
And I do hold true to that. But when I talk about wanting to be a little more reserved, that also falls into it.
Mm.
I'm learning. I'm continuing to learn what my mental health looks like.
Yeah.
That was a big share for me. I never really shared anything about my marriage or lack thereof now.
Yeah.
That's always been very private. Out of respect for my, ex-partner, even though things were messy,
Mm-hmm.
that's a relationship that I believe stays between the two of us. And if you're around, then you know what happened. And if you weren't, you don't need to know.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a really interesting way to look at it. It's a unique to me. Because there was an artist, I don't know if you ever listened to the band Cursive, where you talk about cry emo bands. And
I was an emo girl through and through. Hence me being like, to write love on her arms. Like,
That's
it's
right.
very, very, very much.
So you know Cursive. If you've cried the emo music, Cursive is there. But Tim Cash, the singer, he was listening to an interview as he recanted the making of Domestica, which is an amazing record, at least by my assessment. And he says, I ended up making a record that says this is why my marriage was shitty and that's why she was shitty. And he says now it was both of us being shitty. So it's an interesting way to kind of look at it. Whereas you're right, like these songs are unfairly condemning a partner. So in his assessment now, he's like, well, let's just ask her, ask me. I've got nothing more to say on it, right? And I think that's such a really beautiful way to treat those kind of tumultuous relationships, And so the fact that you kind of approach that's I would consider a relatively mature.
Thank you. I had my flaws. I had my parts in that relationship, and I think anyone's damned who doesn't believe that it takes two to tango in any way, whether it's good or bad. So that I've never opened up about, but going through that and going through my family situations all within such a short chapter of time, what more do you do than just want to share where you're at, right? I thought I owed people more maybe when I was younger too.
So not that social media is the right outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. It's for the individual, right? But what is the outlet now for you? Because I'm sure you still have those feelings. You still have things that you want to wrestle, digest, dissect and stuff. Do you write? Do you play music? I know, of course, you can sing and stuff, but what's a good outlet for you now?
I do. I still write poetry and I still write music for myself. I used to share that a lot more as well. That was more of maybe more of my sharing on social media back in the day. It's still a huge part of me, but I think finding who I am now and really leaning into my adulthood and my identity alone, I started to realize that I wanted that for me. It was more sacred for me. Oh, so I've backed off on sharing a lot of that stuff. But I also realized that I was sharing when it came to my family and myself. I lost both my parents pretty quickly back to back.
Wow.
And you go into a pandemic immediately after. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'm having panic attacks. I'm just trying to put 2 feet in front of each other. Exactly. And I thought that me opening up would allow people that crossed through those chapters later would. And it did show true to form. Unfortunately, being part of the Dead Parents Club, as you get older, you start meeting more people who are. And I was one of the first calls with a lot of my friends who lost a parent. And that was always the intention behind it. It wasn't more of a woe is me situation. It was saying, I'm going to give you a little bit of me because I hope that you don't go through this. But if you do, know that it's okay. And I'm struggling, but this is the beauty of life and this is how I'm viewing it. And that's more of when I say I used to overshare a little bit. I think that's the topic of conversation. And I now find that keeping those things true to me keeps less people from using it against me because that was an issue I've had in the past.
Wow, okay.
They weren't people who deserved my space anymore, but
it's sometimes
it happens with anybody, right? You look at
it's just like
somebody, you get mad in an argument, somebody who says something like to cut deep, right? They don't mean it, but they have the information, they're going to use it.
I think they mean it to hurt, but maybe they don't mean the words. Does that make sense? They mean it to take the jab.
I mean, the intention was there to hurt, but at the time.
Mm.
But if they have the information to use that. And for me, it's just my life story doesn't have to be open yet. I've thought about writing about it, but until I'm ready. So we're backing off a little bit. And also to add on to that a little bit more, as I've gotten older, I've realized I don't need to share. And it also, my career choices have changed.
Yeah.
Therefore, everything that I say, I mean, doing the TV show I was on, they checked everything. Yeah. They scanned all parts of social media. So we just did a deep clean, which is why you can't find a lot.
Yeah, I noticed this because not everybody does that.
Yep.
You know, and I won't tell you who after the mic's off, I can tell you. But I found an arrest photo from one of my guests who is very prominent in this industry. And
also, very common in this industry, and if we don't admit that it is, then I don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah, no.
To say.
This particular scenario was he defrauded an elderly woman of like $40,000. Say no more.
Oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
different. I don't know if that one aligns with this industry often.
No, that's a different one. That's not the kind of abuse that we typically see.
I rescind my last statement.
But those abuses also occur. I've bared witness to. Actually, you know what? I'll say this. Anytime that I've never seen it egregious, right? To a point where I had to step in, whether it was male to male, female to male, whatever. I've never seen an egregious overstep. I find, actually, this is a big question for you, but I don't know if because I'm older or people like don't want to show bad face in front of me or something, but people they don't misbehave around me, and I'm not even a dad, right? But they're like on their best behavior with me, but they're like, I'm walking on eggshells. So I feel like somehow the wool's been pulled over my eyes sometimes, like to actually seeing how shitty some of the people around me are because they don't do it in front of me.
Interesting.
So I don't know if I like that or not.
So, yeah, I feel like a lot of people are very comfortable and maybe share too much with me, and that's fine. It's a safe space. I will never repeat the things I hear. But within me, I don't want to be perceived in a way that's not realistic.
Yeah.
But reputations do matter. And whether or not people want to admit they do, they do.
Oh my goodness.
I don't need someone to think that I don't have flaws. They exist. They're here.
Yeah.
But how I'm perceived is important. And within my career, that's also very important. As time ticks on, you can know who I am. But if it comes down to a job interview, my social media, where I'm at, the respect, especially as a woman when I was in production, every little thing I said, what I wore to work, what I posted online, could have easily and has been used against me. So even before now, being in such a minority state of a field and not being taken seriously every single day and fighting for that was probably the true switch moment for me, saying, just be careful. Be careful what you say. Be careful who you trust. Look out for yourself first. Maybe it goes back to a little bit of everything, but specifically being harassed and assaulted within my career put a lot of depth into how I carry myself.
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad it happened because it has served me well as time's gone on.
Again, what's really kind of emerging, because we've maybe talked at length, or maybe 2 times, I think, one at Mixta, and then another time before that, but it wasn't necessarily like at length. And so, but it's like really apparent to me now in this kind of forum is how intentional and how strategic you're being, because you really do understand you only got one chance to have integrity and have a good reputation. You seldom get a second chance to have a good reputation if your integrity is gone.
And I've watched it. You know, maybe I'm lucky in that sense. I have a lot of friends in the industry who maybe didn't have that opportunity to watch someone else go through. You never want to at the sake of somebody else, but I've watched a lot of friends, whether it be in production or within the brand world or what have you, have one too many drinks, get behind the wheel, whatever it might be. I had my past that none of you guys know about, but in the sense of our careers, all eyes are on us at all times. And whether we want it or not, it's what we're signing up for.
You're absolutely right, because you never get to decide who's going to pay attention to your work. You know, you never get to decide how someone interprets your work. It's
That's
out
the
of your
biggest part.
hands. Yeah. And I have a rule now, and before we make this great announcement, which you shared with me just a moment ago before we started recording, about how maybe all of this strategic.
It may have worked in my favor a little bit, but now I got to be real careful.
Right, and I can see it in your face. I can see the words. But I have a rule now, because, and not woe is me. No one needs to feel sorry for. I don't feel sorry for myself. But I've created some things recently and in the past that some people in the Mexican community, not the Latino community, but the Mexican community have taken not offense by, but they've taken issue with. Now, had I not had most of my friends being from that community, I would feel like a little bit of an imposter, but I don't really feel that way. But
us Mexicans love you. We love you.
I love you.
You're one of us.
which I will never say, but I feel it. I feel the connection, But the point is like now when I post about something and I get naysayers or people insulting my family, which is happening, I realize that my account, unless I'm posting a poll, like you actually posted a poll like yesterday.
Or was it my tattoo thing?
Yeah, your tattoo thing.
It's actually, I can't wait to share all of the rest of the stories.
It was so good. But
that's also, I have a thought process for that.
I'm sure you do. But that's different. If I'm asking like, what do you think about this? What should I watch next? Do you like these shoes? This is all open conversation on my account.
Right. If I ask, I have to be ready.
Precisely. However, if I don't ask anymore, because I had a series of people, about 4 people lately have been making these sensory kits, and they came to attack me because they said, well, this woman made them first. I'm like, actually, the French made them first, but this is not besides the point. And so I realized I'm not going to get embroiled with people I don't know. If this is a Christian Bale thing, if you don't have my number, you can't criticize me because you can't tell me because we're not close. But the point is now any of my posts that are not interactive, I don't want to ever give someone the illusion that they can talk shit when I'm just delivering a message, because I delete it. No comments. If you're being an asshole on my
post, listening?
Yeah, I will delete your comment. If you want to talk to me about your pure and your actual passion towards your culture, and that you may have a way that you're feeling about it as me being part of that culture, we will talk. I've given my phone number to those people. Guess how many people have called me to talk through?
None of them.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how it works. But, it's funny that you say that, because I think, me and you both have production. Like that's our niche, right? And why can't we have more than one thing on the shelf? That is the beauty of it, right? Everybody has a reason why they choose something. So why can you not join the masses with the sensory kit? Why are people so up in arms about it?
I don't know. Well, I do know why, but that's a far different conversation to have, which is a bar top conversation.
But those are the questions. It's always like, can you give me a why?
Right.
I'll hear you out. We don't have to agree.
Totally. And I always want to.
Let me know where you're at. Yeah. Right. Here's my number.
That's right.
And you don't care to have the conversation, and that's the difference.
I just want to post on my thing, get some views, and I'm like, this is mine. This is my space. This is my account.
Exactly. And I'm going to let you know how much you're allowed in that space.
That's precisely right. Which, if coming full circle with you and your intentionality and the way that you craft your persona, you completely get it. But that's my rule now. So
if you want to get to know me and call me, hang out.
That's right. Totally.
I like to eat food and have wine and calvados.
Tea or coffee?
Ooh. What's the setting?
Need to talk through some life problems with you.
Daytime, nighttime.
1 p.m.
Iced coffee.
Oh, nice.
Or tea. But I feel like I tend to have more tea at night now. So I'm going to go with coffee.
I like it. I'm just curious what we were thinking. Well, so this path now is taking yet another turn in this latest chapter for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm the first one that gets to utter it on your behalf.
Yeah, it hasn't been
not announced yet.
We're just making sure everything gets lined up.
And apparently all the paperwork is cleared, so you're
hopefully I don't eat my words.
You're doing this thing. No, we'll treat
if I do,
such reverence.
No, delete it.
So does this mean you're going to move to Houston?
Yes, I haven't announced that either. So, yes.
Tell everybody that's waiting with their bated breath what the next chapter is.
So I'm really excited because this next chapter I get to utilize all of the work I've done within the industry. Theater, hospitality, entertainment. I spent the last 9 months working with other huge brand names for event activations, really honing in on how I can take all this experience I've had and still use it. I've had something itching in the back of my mind for years. I went to Camp Run Amok 2023, had a lot of friends in the agency and brand side of the world poking at me to get out of production. Just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to rip the umbilical cord out. And I moved back to Texas in September and finally started getting to work towards the goal that I knew I was capable of. All that to be said, I get to now educate and advocate for bartenders, for the distillers, for the trade advocacy, for distribution. I am now the Houston Proximo Portfolio Ambassador.
That's amazing.
I'm very excited.
What are a few of the notable? I know there's a lot from my recollection. I go Proximo, but anyway. But what are some of the brands? Not that you're not excited to work with all of them. What are some that maybe you'll start reading the book on first? Yeah,
so a huge part of my onboarding and just Proximo, known as a portfolio, Bushmills is a major one. Fantastic. And Jose Cuervo.
Oh, okay.
So most of our portfolio, it's actually fairly attainable for my brain, which I really love because looking at different portfolios, trying to figure out, do I want to do one brand? Do I want to have a portfolio of things? Leaned more on the portfolio side for experience. And Proximo is known for, I haven't had formal training yet, so forgive me, but I'm going to speak on what I do know. Proximo is known for whiskey and agave, essentially.
It's 400 Conejos too, right? The mezcal. That's Cuervo, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure. There's not a quiz. It is Cuervo, and I'm pretty sure that's part of it.
Yeah, they go as Cuervo. Yeah. I think it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, so that means at least you can dip your...
Now I'm like, oh my gosh, I've stared at all these 1,000 times. Now I'm like questioning. Bushmills, Stranahan's, which is
nice.
single malt,
Colorado
on the map. Fantastic. The expressions that Stranahan's doing right now are so fun. We've got Proper Number 12.
Oh, okay.
So those are 3. We got 10 cup whiskey. So we've got a fun amount of whiskey options. And then on the agave side, 1800 is our, one of our secondary options there too. We've got Reserva, which is fantastic. 400 Conejos is our big mezcal name. And then we've got some more really fun agave expressions with different brands.
Oh, cool.
And I'm actually really excited about we've got 1 vodka and 1 rum on the portfolio right now. 3 olives, which they just redid their marketing. I love the accessibility for so many different bars and walks of life with 3 olives. And Kraken rum, which I drank a ton of. Proximo is known for experiential activations and education. So these brands really do bring to light so much more and put a lot of opportunity on the table for me to have creative fun with. But also getting to educate a lot of the brands that we see often and we touch often, we don't talk about often.
I think that's actually the deepest point because we know these brands, but you don't feel close to them. And that's not because of the brand themselves, but there's never been like a real conduit into those brands, and like you think Cuervo's so big, why do they need an insider and like kind of a handheld into the brand? But I think it's important, right? And so I like that you're thinking about that, saying, oh, I could be a conduit. I could bring people to these places where they maybe don't feel that the brands are human.
Right. Well, I see it a lot on the bartending side, and maybe my perspective is different because I've been a producer, I've been a distiller. My heart and soul is in a bottle in such a different way, and the value of that story and where it's coming from. So being able to now flip on the opposite spectrum, and I listen a lot, and you hear a lot of conversations happening in different sectors of our world, assuming that because a brand has money, whether it's beer or acquisitions of companies all the time, it's like, that's a great thing. That is 90% of the time always the goal of any brewer, cider maker. Why? Quality of life. Time and service.
Yeah.
People appreciating something that you've went into debt for, because that's underestimated. But also quality of life for your employees.
Mm-hmm.
So many companies cannot provide healthcare, can't provide living wage comfortably.
Yeah.
People argue you can pay more. It doesn't work like that. A successful business doesn't operate that way.
You do, because you work for small
And that's
businesses. So
my whole degree program was based on fermentation, but also the business side of it. So I've seen the value of having a P&L, having a COGS like layout.
Yes.
Like bars don't do costs all the time. So sorry, if you're in the Houston market and you have questions, we're going to talk about what my bottle of Bushmills can do in your cocktail and what your cost per ounce is going to be.
That's great.
Let's get into it if you want to. Let's talk about the financial side if that's what works for you. But this is the value in someone's eyes that doesn't transactionally benefit them, aka not a business owner, maybe a bartender.
Yeah.
Naturally, why would they look at a bottle differently?
I know, and it's an interesting thing, and this kind of brings us full circle to like people want what they want for them. They're the star of their own, like it's just this kind of self-centeredness too. And I see in the industry, not always, actually far less in the industry than I do in tech, which is where I'm spending time day to day with people. So it's good. I love that you're going to bring that lens and that kind of perspective to people, because it's a unique pedigree of which you have, very unique. And I think that that's going to serve you very well. So I've got 2 questions left.
Okay.
This one, because I just love movies, so it's actually kind of touching back to the question that you're going to linger on earlier. Okay. So let's say you're sipping some Bushmills. They always, every time in Ireland, they tell me to drink it on the rocks. I'm like, fine. So, all right, Bushmills on a rock, right? Anywhere in the world, doesn't matter where. Which actors, alive or dead, would you love to sit and have a dram with? A whiskey dram at that.
Alive or dead?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is such a great question that I should have an answer for, like on the fly.
And it always changes.
Yeah.
That's the thing. People think, well, this is the one that I'm going to commit to for the rest of your life. No.
I'm like, who do I have a lot of questions for?
Yeah.
If they were handcuffed, the first one that came to mind, which is not actually my final answer, but immediately I said handcuffed, but also with sunglasses on because their eyes creep me out. The Idaho murder guy, Brian.
Oh, really?
I have so many questions.
Right. Yeah.
But I can't look at him. His eyes are piercing in not a good way.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, maybe that's not my final answer, but
that's an interesting one. I never considered Bundy, for instance.
Yeah,
right?
I want to sit down and I want to understand your brain. For me, it's always same thing. Empowering bartenders, empowering trade. What's your life goal? Like, where are you at? So right. I bring that into dinner conversation. Tell me more about you.
Well, I think we both do that.
Yeah. Who would yours be?
If I was doing it right now, because I've been watching Restaurant Impossible talking about costing items. I love cooking shows and stuff. But also, I had the chance to meet Gordon Ramsay some years ago, but I would like to actually sit down and have a dram with him proper. Maybe at the Savoy, because he's got a restaurant over there. Mm-hmm. And I think, because he seems like the kind, even though he's a Scottish guy, I think he would drink a dry martini with me at Savoy. The Savoy, our American bar at Savoy. That's what I hope. So right now, Gordon Ramsay, I would love to get a drink with.
Anthony Bourdain's a common answer. I wouldn't say no to that, but I'm going to go with Celine Dion.
Oh, cool. I like
hopefully,
that a lot.
Hopefully she's doing okay.
Yeah, I know. What is it, degenerative, bone or nerve damage?
Yeah, she's got, oh my gosh.
I can't remember.
I can't think of the name of it.
But
it's even more painful than that. Oof. Yeah, I have an autoimmune that's in this. A very distant cousin from that. So I have a lot of nerve pain and muscle disorders. I can't even imagine where she's at whatsoever. And I think a lot of people that quiet mask of if you don't know, you don't see.
Yeah, that's
so many people that are suffering in a lot of the places that she is, and she's vocalizing that for the masses that don't get advocated for. So I would love to sit down with her.
I'm with you, and I'll share something off the mic too, related to that same kind of thing, with someone very close to me. Okay, how much longer then do you have in Austin before you move to Houston? Is it that fast?
I start Tuesday.
You're going to be in Houston moved by Tuesday?
Oh, no, that's not happening.
Okay. Yeah, because you have the doggo, right?
Yeah, I got my old man, but he's primarily with my sister. He's been primarily with me recently, but he'll stay here. He'll stay in his home where he's comfy.
Nice.
I just don't have the lifestyle to have an animal right now. I don't think it's fair. So I need to get my feet on the ground and figure out what this first year looks like, and maybe I can entertain a cat. I feel like a cat's a little more.
They're chill.
I just cat sit for Simon, who's with Pernod.
Yeah.
And I was like,
his cat's cool.
His cats are cool. Like I could see this, but I got to find the right one.
Yeah.
But for now, no. My entertainment and my people in my community, and I have a lot to learn and a lot to do, and my team's great, so I'm excited to be able to just jump into that and not have any other responsibilities. But
it's amazing, and I completely get it. I'm glad we did this.
It's worked out.
Understand you far greater than I could have imagined, and I really appreciate your approach to, especially the brand of you, which is quite an important thing to preserve, and it means. Like I can tell the intentionality again, and that is very, very clear to me. So, congrats on the gig.
Thank you.
Even though it's starting on Tuesday. And
I'll be out. I'll be out of here.
Days, so.
My goal is to be in Houston in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Bought back up and grab stuff.
Yeah.
But I need to get down there. I got to start working.
Yeah.
They're not paying me to stay here, so.
Understood. Katie, it was really a pleasure. Hopefully we'll talk soon. Godspeed in Houston. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not far.
I know it's not.
It feels like it some days, right?
Well, there we have it. Katie Black, new to Proximo Spirits, going to be working the market there in Houston. She left me a bottle of Bushmills. I'm looking forward to revisiting. It's been a while. I like Irish whiskey, but I haven't delved into Bushmills too much. Katie's had a great story. You know, an artist at heart. Some of those lessons about allowing yourself to be too vulnerable, bringing people in, sharing too much online. These are all kinds of things I think we all have to build a relationship and some boundaries with. And her word, the word, intentional. I couldn't agree more and find more commonality than that. I try to do the things in the same way as Katie does, and intentional is certainly one of those things. So this is a great move and a great promotion, if you will, for Katie, and I can't wait to see what she's up to next. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how you've been really feeling Still Strength Tequila lately, or if you're thinking, I'll watch a Bobby Flay show, yeah, I'll watch another one, even though he looks really strange with a beard because it's all gray and it makes him look like a really, really old little kid. Please keep dancing.